We're about to talk about a book where people deal out death for a living. Hey, Book Dragons. So glad you're here with me today. I've got a book review for you today on Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This is the first book in the arc of a Scythe trilogy, and I really enjoyed my time with it, and I'm going to tell you all about it. Well, spoiler free, of course. I'm not going to go into so much detail that it spoils everything for you, not to worry. So let's get right to it. I'm going to put on my eyes. So what is Scythe? It is a YA quasi-utopian science fiction novel. And you may be wondering what I mean by quasi-utopian, and I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. And this does take place in our world, but it's a far future world where death, discrimination, famine, war, and the class system have been eradicated by an omnipotent AI. However, this omnipotent AI has not forbidden procreation. So the population is still growing. So in order to keep the population at realistic levels, sanctioned killing, otherwise known as gleaning, has been put into place. And these gleanings are carried out by an order of trained assassins known as the Scythedom. So you may want to know a little bit about the plot. This book starts off 250 years after mortality has been ended. And two teenagers in this world are selected as new recruits to be apprenticed to a seasoned scythe who can train them to become full scythes themselves. And as they join the ranks and start to begin their training, they find out that there are a whole lot of different perspectives within the scythedom. And as you can imagine, with any world like this, some scythes enjoy their job more than others. And so it's a process of these two young recruits learning the ropes and learning what kind of scythe they really want to be. So let's talk about some of the main characters. The two new recruits, one female, one male, are Citra Terranova and Rowan Damish. And they get apprenticed initially to a seasoned scythe known as Michael Faraday. Another character that features prominently in the story is the Highblade Xenocratus. He essentially presides over the scythedom. He is the highest ranked of all scythes in the Pan-American scythedom. And Pan-America is what used to be the Americas in this world. There's also Scythe Marie Curie, who is known by the nickname the Grand Dame of Death. And then the other main character is Scythe Robert Goddard. Goddard is on a mission to revise and refine the parameters of scythedom and create a new society of scythes that realize the grand calling that they've been called to and the importance of enjoying your job. So Goddard is featuring as one of the main antagonists in this story. He's a leader of a gang, and he's known for his extravagance both in his duties as a scythe as well as the pleasures that he partakes in by virtue of the prestige of his being a scythe. So now I want to focus on some of the unique elements in this story that really stuck out to me and made this book so interesting for me. And the first one I want to talk about is that it is equal parts sci-fi thriller and mystery, because it does take place in the future and technology has taken care of most of everything for us, and yet there is a murder that happens. And so certain characters in the story take it upon themselves to look into the mystery, figure out what's happening. So it's really interesting to see those two blended together. And this is a seemingly true utopian society. So earlier when I mentioned that it was quasi-utopian, I really meant that. This is a society where so many things are ideal. As I was reading the book, I'm going, wow, this is actually a really cool society. So with most dystopian novels, there's a lot more negative than positive. And that's why I really wanted to focus on this being a utopia, because so much about what has happened is actually not that bad if you think about it. And I'll talk about a few other things here. But it was really interesting to see the difference between this series and other series that kind of fit into that post-apocalyptic subgenre. There are 10 laws that the Scythes operate by, and the reason they have those laws is because they operate outside the jurisdiction of the all-powerful AI. They are the only society in this world that operates outside that jurisdiction. Everything else is controlled by the AI. And part of the structure of the Scythedom is having quotas. So because they have to control the population, each scythe has to meet a certain quota of gleanings every year. And they also have the authority to grant immunity for 1 year to certain individuals that meet certain guidelines. This is a world where immortality has been achieved by nanites in the blood that have been designed by the AI, so that if you die, let's say you fall off a building or whatever, you will be rushed to the nearest facility to be revived. And so no one is referred to as being dead anymore. They're only dead-ish. And so that makes for some humorous scenarios. Like there are people in the book that jump off buildings for the fun of it to see what it's like, because they know they're going to be brought back to life anyway. In the Scythedom, there is rigorous training and testing for new Scythe recruits. And once someone becomes a full Scythe, they take on the name of a patron saint or philosopher from the pre-immortal world. So you may have recognized a couple of the names that I mentioned of characters earlier, like Michael Faraday and Marie Curie. Those are their patron names. Each Scythe is required to keep a daily journal. And what was really cool about this book is at the end of every chapter you get journal entries from different Scythes in the story. And it was a really interesting way to present some of the different aspects of the world and elements of world building in epistolary form. And Scythes are basically priests in this world. They don't marry, they don't really have any possessions with the exception of their journal and the clothes on their back. Everything is provided to them by the hospitality of other people in the world who want to shower gifts and different things on them out of the goodwill of their hearts, or oftentimes out of the hope that they will be given immunity for a year. And you can imagine that some of the Scythes that really enjoy their job take full advantage of those fringe benefits. There is only one religion left in this world because the AI has completely eradicated religion. For the most part, it doesn't exist, with the exception of one, and that is the tonists. And they worship the vibrations of sound. It's kind of interesting. And most weapons are outlawed, except for scythes. They have access to pretty much any weapon that they can imagine to perform their gleanings with. Whether it be flamethrowers, machine guns, swords, even scythes potentially. Just any weapon that you can imagine that you could kill someone with, they are given access to those weapons. They don't use all of them, of course. Every scythe has their preferences of weapons that they like to use. Even martial arts skills are employed in gleaning. So sometimes no weapon is used except your bare fists. So I want to talk briefly about some of the themes in the book, One of the themes is sadism versus altruism. Some scythes really do have a strong emotional bearing for the job that they do and a true desire to care for the individuals that they are gleaning and for the families of those individuals. Other scythes are more sadistic and they just really enjoy what they're doing. They still take care of the families of the people that they glean, but really only because they have to, not really because they care. And so the two different sides of that coin are really thoughtfully explored in this book. Ethical concerns are also explored in this book. Things like what age is appropriate for gleaning, which rules should be observed, which rules are more like guidelines. There's a whole lot of different ethical concerns that surround the job of a scythe. So trying to figure out which one of those are requirements and which one of those are guidelines, and it really depends on the scythe what view they take on it. So it can be a little bit subjective, even though it would seem like it should be more objective, but a lot of times it isn't. And for most of the scythedom, compassion is really the ultimate value. And those are the scythes that you want to get involved with and be trained by. And the book does show what happens when you get assigned to a more sadistic scythe versus an altruistic scythe. So it's really fascinating to explore some of these relationships and to see how different scythes operate depending on their perspective on ethics and things of that nature. So we'll touch on some pros and cons, and then we'll talk about my rank for the book, okay? One thing that could be a con for some people would be the fact that this is a YA novel. But I was not really bothered by that. I thought it was just a fantastic YA novel. I thought it was really cool, very engaging, very thought-provoking, just a completely unique world, and I was engrossed the whole time. But it could be a con for some people. If you just don't enjoy reading young adult literature, then this might not be for you. But this definitely borders more on the adult of young adult, so I would definitely recommend giving it a try, even if you don't typically read young adult. As I said, it's a very engaging story. It's very easy to read. The font size is really good in the book as well, so it makes for a very good experience for being easy on the eyes and just a very quick read in general. Between the way the book is written and how engaging it is and the font size, all combines for a really great reading experience. And I read this book in 4 days, guys. It was that quick. It was that good of a novel. So my rank for this book is soaring. Absolutely. This is easily one of the best books I've read in 2023, and I'm so glad I read it. This was my patron pick for the last quarter of 2023. I'm so glad that Danielle over at Bookcara picked it for me because it was just such an awesome read. So if you are a fan of things like The Hunger Games or the Divergent novels or The Giver by Lois Lowry, you will probably really enjoy this, but it's completely different and in a good way. I enjoyed The Hunger Games, but it was just okay for me. I liked Divergent better. I didn't really care for The Giver that much, but this book is better than all three, in my personal opinion. I think this is the best YA dystopian novel out there, and like I said, it's not really full-on dystopian. I think it presents a society that is really appealing. Everything has been turned over to the AI pretty much. You don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about clothing. You don't have to worry about what job you're going to do, things like that. It's all taken care of for you. Everything is provided. And so there's not really any reasons for war to happen or for anybody to go hungry or anything like that. So I thought it was really, really cool. And that's just not something you get in some of those other series. So yeah, it's completely unique. I highly recommend this to you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is this a book that you think you would enjoy reading? Or maybe you've already read the book. Let me know that in the comments as well. And until next time, make sure that you guys read more books. I'll talk with you soon.